So the weekend at the movies, I had a couple of choices. Um, None of them I was really jumping for joy over. I had three choices of new movies this weekend. First one was Seventh Son, which I saw the trailer. I had no interest in seeing that one. The second one was SpongeBob, which I was considering. And then the third one was Jupiter Ascending, which I was also considering. And I ended up seeing Jupiter Ascending. And based on the final result, I probably should have seen SpongeBob. But the reason I didn't was because I learned from going to see Brave and the Katy Perry movie that a guy my age going by himself to see a kid's movie in the middle of the day looks a little creepy. So I'll just wait for DVD on that one. But I guarantee it would have been a lot better than Jupiter Ascending. This movie was a mess. And I like the Wachowskis. I almost called them brothers. I like the Wachowskis. Their films are just, they're all ambition. Even when they make a really bad one like Speed Racer, it's really, really ambitious. And that's kind of what drew me to it. They have this their movies are big, they're complex, and I really like them. The last movie, Cloud Atlas, was on my 10 best list that year. I thought that was a really, really challenging movie. Jupiter Ascending is not challenging. Even Matrix was challenging. This one is not. It's kind of a mess. But it's got tone problems. It can't really decide what kind of movie it wants to be. I'm guessing that what they were trying to do here is that they were trying to come up with a variation on the sci-fi pulp novel, from the years ago, the kind with the beefy guy and the girl with the overdeveloped girl on the cover, the kinds of covers that were drawn by like Boris Vallejo. And I got that spirit. The covers always suggest a lot of violence and a lot of sex. Well, it has a lot of violence. It doesn't really have any sex in it. But the story is ambitious. It's the story has a lot of ambition. It's the way it plays out that is a problem. Basically, just like The Matrix, it's another altered reality story where you have an alien aristocracy somewhere in space. And we find out that Earth was created to harvest human beings so that when we had reached a certain point of evolution, we can be harvested and we could be turned into this goo that makes the aliens eternally young. Now that's a neat idea. I really like that idea. It's really, really ambitious. It's really out there. I like that. But what they do with it, it's just, they can't decide on a tone for this movie. It's all over the place. Of course, it's the old story of the aristocracy. The brothers are heir to the throne, and two brothers are heir to the throne, and they are battling each other over how who's going to get it. They find out that there's a third heir who was kidnapped at birth and hidden away. And her name is Jupiter. And she is played by Mila Kunis, who lives on Earth and has no idea about any of this. No idea about anything, outside of her own terra firma. She is a beautiful girl who nevertheless cleans houses and still looks like a fashion model. And there are hitmen sent to Earth to kill her. And she is rescued by a guy named Kane, played by Channing Tatum, who's sort of a half dog, half man. He's a Mog, I guess. And he was the product of genetic engineering. And his job is to save her. He's the Kyle Reese of the story. Anyway, the movie is one long chase. At which we get a lot of action scenes, a lot of scenery. We get a chase on Earth, we get a chase in space, a little of this, a little of that. The character played by Mila Kunis, her function in this movie is to do two things. She is required to fall off of things, and she's required to be rescued. That's it. That's her role. And she is rescued in this movie, I swear, at least 8 times. And it is, seriously, every 10 minutes he's got to come save her from something. But there's all these weird kind of plot elements in here. There's something about she goes to hide out at a farm and realizes that there's a swarm of bees and they can sense when royalty is nearby, and there's a weird scene in space where they're trying to get her title put through, and there's a scene, it's a scene kind of like out of The Fifth Element, where they have to go through, it's like they're going through the DMV or something, and they have to go to this window, to this window, to this window. It's kind of a funny scene, but it's dropped in out of nowhere, and it's completely inconsistent with the rest of the movie. There's a scene where one of the alien brothers is having a floating orgy, and it's kind of weird because it comes out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, let's tack this on. It just felt weird. It's little things like that. You sense that there was an idea, there were ideas here, but they never had any idea how to put them in motion. It's a very, very, very strange film. It's a little of this, a little of that, a little Fifth Element, a little Men in Black, a little Star Wars, a little of, it's just, there's no consistency here. And of course the third act is just stuff blowing up and them being chased. Like I said, I give the Wachowskis points for being ambitious. I just can't give them points for execution. This movie is a mess from bottom to top. And I'm trying to think if I'm leaving anything out, because there's a lot to this movie. There's a lot of this movie. It's well over 2 hours. It's probably about 45 minutes too long. The one thing I really noticed, the one thing that stays in my mind, is Eddie Redmayne. Eddie Redmayne plays one of the evil brothers, and this is the second film I've seen him in. He's currently nominated for an Oscar for The Theory of Everything, and I'm glad this wasn't the first movie I saw him in, because it's a terrible performance. And so, having seen him as Stephen Hawking, I know he can do better. So, this movie is so problematic. I don't know where else to go with this, but other than just say it's really terrible, but it looks great. The ideas are there. I'm guessing that the Wachowskis were hoping that this movie would ride on ambition alone, but that's not enough. It's like they got all the ideas laid out, but they didn't quite know how to string it together. It's a bad movie. It's a bad movie. If you have to see it, if you're a Wachowski completionist, check it out on DVD. or maybe on when it comes to basic cable, which, based on the numbers that this movie was drawing in over the weekend, it doesn't look like that would be too long. But yeah, this movie's a mess. Join me over on part 2. I'll have some final thoughts, and we'll talk about trailers.